Zimbabwe, a landlocked country in the heart of South Central Africa. It is similar in many ways to other African countries, a mix of natural beauty, powerful and majestic, but ravaged by colonialism and corruption. Zimbabwe has some of the most beautiful scenery in the world, but at the same time, some of the most striking poverty and unimaginable political corruption on the planet. In 2004, as the country spiraled out of economic control, the Zim dollar went into an unchecked freefall. Yes, you are looking at a $100 trillion bill, the largest denomination made before their currency officially collapsed. In the midst of this chaos, stores closed, trade stopped, and goods and services simply evaporated. As we discovered when we were there, men from the church would drive all the way to Botswana to buy food and trade whatever they could to get staples. The stores were literally empty, and the money for next year's seed crop was worthless. In 2004, one of our MB leaders returned home from the Mennonite World Conference in Bulawayo that year. He showed a short film about his experience to our congregation. During that film, a persistent local resident kept sticking his head in and out of the frame, yelling, "Help us! Help us!" And then he would be back in a few minutes later, yelling the same thing. Well, as it turned out, it took Carolyn McElraith over a year of equally persistent detective work to actually track him down. We would like you to meet Jackson, Rhonda, and Logu. In their local language, Indabeli, his name actually means elephant, and what a fitting name for such a powerful man. He and his wife are incredible people who care deeply for their poor. Here he is, talking about Victoria Falls.
What I'm saying, the falls here, this is where rivers all over north of us in Zambia, in Zaire, part of Angola, they converge somewhere and they form this big river called Zambezi. And it is only at this site where the river falls into a gorge, leading to these wonderful falls and this smoke that thunders. Otherwise, it's rivers from all over north of Zimbabwe that pull the water together and they form this massive fall, beautiful big falls called Musiatunywa, the smoke that thunders to the locals.
When we landed in Bulawayo, we were totally shocked. Nothing more than a simple hangar to service more than 1 million people. The people were friendly and helpful. Government officials, not so much. Jackson and Rhonda were amazing hosts, and we were really humbled by their generosity. Our first real stop was the Nkata Church, and I'd like you to listen closely what Jackson had to say.
Metal shed, and this was part of our original building. Okay, we would sit here, and during the rain, this was covered right up to there, and that was the there you can see. This was the church. We were all sitting in here. There was nothing at the back, and we just squat here. We're running, the number was about 20, 30 or 40. Then it grew to what we have now, over 400 each Sunday. All these bricks you are seeing and the mortar or the cement that went in here, it was money donated by Arms of Love from Canada, and we're exchanging this money and good rates from some of our church members. So the window frames were bought from a donation given to us by Brethren Christ Menham in USA. But all this brick is water.
Oh, that's
all the brick.
So, Feed Love Change International and Waterloo MB donations actually built this church, which began underneath that shed with just a few believers, and in a few years has grown to over 450. The building is beautiful and is a powerful testimony to Feed Love Change's commitment to see communities grow and develop. Just recently, they finished installing the roof. The main purpose of our visit was to see the feeding program at work. After a 5-hour church service in the morning, we had a fast lunch and returned to see how it all works. The feeding program is a piece of African ingenuity. Bags of mealie meal and sugar beans and cooking oil vats were delivered to the church earlier in the week and stored safely. Around 2 in the afternoon, the widows and orphans from all over the community began to gather. The ledger books were opened, and all those registered were called by name and took their place in line. No legitimate widow or orphan was turned away. One by one, they filed into the storeroom to collect their monthly food supply. On this day, each of the children chose a toy or stuffed animal to take home with them. Slowly, with bags on their heads, they returned to their homes, mostly laughing, singing, and enjoying community. This program has been running since 2005 and has developed into one of the most effective NGOs in Zimbabwe. Jackson wanted us to meet some of these widows in their homes, so he took us around to meet them in their community. On our journey through the neighborhood, we discovered an amazing market garden that was divided into different plots. Each of the community residents were allowed to work a small plot to grow their own vegetables. It is money very well spent by World Vision. Back to the widows. We visited several of them in their homes, listening to their dreams and stories about what they would really do if they could. I want you to listen to one of these interviews right now.
So, Jackson, they live in the front part of the house?
This is one room she is occupying with her 5 children. She lives here, that's where she sleeps, and her girl children. And this boy sleeps on the other side towards the door.
How many people sleep in this room?
6.
6?
Yes.
Yes, 6.
You must be cozy.
But this boy has grown up now. How old are you?
20.
He's 20. So he's staying with the mom here. And this causes, again, culturally, to us, that's the level that is not acceptable.
Yes.
That this boy should sleep in the same house with, not same house, same room
Yeah.
with the mother and the elder sisters. But that's how bad our situation in Zimbabwe is in terms of accommodation, in terms of employment. Currently we are talking about 85% unemployment in Zimbabwe. This boy should be working now. He should either be somewhere looking after himself and helping his mother to bring up the sisters. I got a letter yesterday. Was it you who sent a letter? Yes. There is a warrant to arrest her for non-failing to pay school fees for this girl. The letter of warrant is at my home. I say to myself with Rhonda, I wish she could allow those who sent in the warrant to come and see what she is living on. All that they have done, they are depriving this girl to know her results at school. One does not know whether she did well. If she did well, she could use the certificate to look for a job and possibly pay the government. But she has been sent a warrant saying failure to pay $131.
Yes.
We are attaching your property.
This thing called Feed Love Change International, which began with a pesky African who loved his widows and orphans too much to let them die, just did what he could. It reminded me of Mordecai, that faithful exiled Jewish survivor. Remember the story? Queen Esther realizes that the survival of the Jews in captivity rested somewhat on her courage to approach the king of Babylon. Mordecai responds back to her when she is afraid. He says, "If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from some other place." Mordecai's prayers would be answered another way if Queen Esther chose not to get involved. Like Mordecai, Jackson really believed that God would answer his prayers in one way or another. Way back when Jackson first jumped in and out of the video, God was putting it out to us. Either get involved here, or deliverance for Jackson and his community would come from some other place. It was our time then, and still continues today. Feed Love Change International continues to grow and work with the Encated community. It was, however, not without its setbacks. But when people feel moved, really moved, that's when things get done. Carolyn got it started, but many people have gotten involved since. God spoke to our community through Jackson, and we responded. Good news in the form of mealie meal? Yes, that's exactly what it was. Matthew 25 says, "And the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance. The kingdom of God has been prepared for you since the beginning of the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me, and came to visit me in prison.' Then the righteous will answer, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger in need of a home, or when did we see you sick and in prison?' And the king will answer them, 'I tell you the truth. Whatever you did for the least of these my brothers, you did it to me.'"